March 29th, 2014 marks the 101st anniversary of one of Wales' most celebrated and also controversial poets, R.S. Thomas. And for us, this gives us a great hook for our creative idea and a way to really tap into that audience. Our creative idea is to use a selection of R.S. Thomas's poetry and look at the bleak but also beautiful portrait he painted of the Welsh landscape and culture. At the centre of our idea is this juxtaposition between the landscape of Wales and how beautiful this particular area is, and then there's also the human landscape and the challenges of living there. Current television does really seem to romanticise that idea of living in isolation and living in the wild. We want to know what it's actually like to live there and hear about it from people who've lived there for their whole lives, who've been brought up generation by generation living in a very small and unique place. Creative projects have in the past been tied down with R.S. Thomas's complex personality. Our idea is more about looking at the contemporary sort of social issues of living in that area of Wales that are present in his poetry. I think there's something really nice to play with there on the screen, and also something really interesting with a strong universal message.
But as regards Welshness and those are things that R.S. Thomas questioned, really, I think, through his poetry. He tried to poke at the Welsh people and ask them, is that really what you value? And I think that's always a healthy thing to poke. He was a questioning poet, and he wasn't going to lie sleeping. Moving away is only to the boundaries of the self. Better to stay here, I said, leaving the horizons clear. The best journey to make is inward. It is the interior that calls. Eliot heard it. Wordsworth turned from the great hills of the north to the precipice of his own mind and let himself down for the poetry stranded on the bare ledges. For some it is all darkness. For me too, it is dark. But there are hands there I can take, voices to hear, solider than the echoes without. And sometimes a strange light shines, purer than the moon, casting no shadow. That is the halo upon the bones of the pioneers who died for truth.
We are losing now very elderly people who've lived in Aberdaron and the surrounding area all their lives. So we're looking now to who is going to come next, who is going to uphold the tradition.
If we were to win the Ideas Tap Top-Up Fund, it would really enable us to research and then implicate a fine cut of our documentary, which would, for us as graduates, really give us our first chance at getting a television commission. The main focus of our research would be looking at re-recording some of the dialogue in the Welsh language. I think that would really add to the aesthetic of the documentary, but also it would give us a chance to target the Welsh public service broadcaster S4C, and that would really give us an opportunity to reach a huge audience. It would also give us an opportunity to research the possibility of creating a dynamic pop-up cinema event in Wales, in a location such as a castle, or on an island, or in a lighthouse, just something a little bit different that would really attract a lot of media attention and again give us a chance to screen our film to a large audience. The publicity generated by working with Ideas Tap would be great for getting the exposure we need, and it would be great to work with Ideas Tap because we recognise them as an organisation that really enable young creative types like filmmakers. My name is William Roberts and I recently graduated from York St John University, gaining a first class degree in documentary production. My recent work has involved working as a freelance camera operator. I've been co-producing a web series of documentaries on the Nike Football Academy, as well as working on a number of individual advertising projects. So I'd say my main experience lies in researching and directing documentaries. I have a real passion for finding that special idea and then researching it. I've visited the Llŷn Peninsula every summer since I was born, and every time I've been up until now, I've just really taken on board how beautiful it is and how nice it is to look at. But I've never really thought about the challenges of living there, how hard it must be to make a living out there, how to raise a family when all the houses are being bought up as second homes by incomers, so sort of very rich English tourists who see a house and then just buy it, and it's only lived in for maybe a week of the year. And as the peninsula's historically really strong in the Welsh language and culture, there's also that question of whether this traditions and heritage will survive.
I think to be healthy, a community needs a degree of turnover. It needs people to come into it, and those people have to give it perspective as well. But there's that on one hand, and there's the potential loss of your cultural identity on the other. And there's a happy medium. It just needs people who come in to be mindful and respectful. That's all. Economic, we're here dependent on tourism, and tourism is prostitution. We're selling our souls in the tourist trade. If the only way that local people are going to be able to compete is by using wind turbines to generate income or energy that we can sell, we need something noble, a noble industry like manufacturing or energy generation or food production that we can depend on.
It was really important for me to try and paint an honest portrait of the area and not just, like a beautiful scenic postcard. Just to establish what it's really like to live there. In terms of collaboration and working with other people, we've got a fantastic crew for this project, and we've really developed a strong group dynamic as well as strong relationships with our contributors and people who've pointed us in the right direction with research and the right people to approach. We've got Robin Small as our executive producer. We've also got Hazel Anderson working as producer, Rob Scown working as sound designer. We have James Whaler as cinematographer and Colette Moore as researcher and editor. We've also undertaken a huge amount of research as a group, and we've already conducted a one-week shoot on the Llŷn Peninsula. As well as being like a good working group, we've also personally financed our work so far, along with some money we've managed to raise through Kickstarter and crowdfunding. And although this started off as a student production, the idea has just gone from strength to strength. And I think if we were to win the financial assistance of the Top Up Fund, we could really push this idea and hit a huge audience. At the core of this production is our passion for the idea and our desire to see it through. We're now looking at a York-based film production company, Arillo Productions, to take on an executive producer mentor role, and they'd be great for us at helping us distribute the film through pop-up cinemas, as they've done a number of unique events themselves, such as Jaws, watching Jaws in a swimming pool, having secret cinemas, having a TP experience to watch Peter Pan. Huge public events that have been really high profile and really helped them grow as a brand. We want to take on that and help distribute our film. As well as this, we've also been looking at independent award-winning documentary filmmakers, Kim Hopkins, who's recently just produced a film, Folie à Deux, as well as Paul Berriff, who's also a fantastic director and he's worked with the likes of Werner Herzog. So we'd also be looking at taking them on as executive producers and having their input into the final shape of the film.